Hello there friends! In today's video we're going to do something different on my channel. Instead of discussing news or analyzing matches, we'll play a little bit of analytics. Right now everyone is talking about the new Navi roster and whether it will perform well or not, what we can expect from them, or should we even have expectations at all. Of course, at this point we can only speculate because without matches and analysis all we have are discussions and arguments. Today we will discuss the pros and cons of the new roster together, evaluate the situation and see if our concerns can come true. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. First, let me explain why I say we. It's quite simple. I've been browsing through various media and reading what the community has to say about the new Navi roster. I've noted down the main pros and cons that different people frequently mention. Now we'll go through them one by one. Let's start with the cons. The first main problem is the transition to English. I believe that this is an obvious problem for everyone. Now Navi is fully transitioning to English and it won't be easy for the core of the team, be it Simple and Blade. I've seen comments saying that Simple played in Liquid and Blade knows English well, so there shouldn't be any problems. But if you think that way, you're greatly mistaken. It's one thing to give interviews, share information on Faceit or communicate casually, but it's entirely different story to effectively execute strategies and communicate in critical situations, ensuring everyone understands and avoid mistakes. It's no coincidence that almost all international teams, when two players from the same country are left in a disadvantaged position, switch to their native language. The Kovac brothers do this, Monte does this, and almost all teams do this if they have players who speak the same language. It's evident. So what do we have in the Navi's new roster? Only Alexi B speaks English fluently. Also, JL might have great English skills, but the rest have problems, even Simple. As Aurora's current coach and the former analyst of FaZe Innershine wrote, it's ideal for such teams to have at least one native English speaker. They act as the glue, the gel that holds the whole team together. For example, Twists in FaZe, Nav and OC in Liquid, Mezzi in Fnatic, JKS in G2. The only international teams without native speakers that are doing well are ENCE and Vitality. You might say, look at Vitality, the major winners, Zyvu never spoke English and now everything's fine. Sure, I agree, but look at how much time it took for them to synergize properly. Zonek mentioned in interviews for over a year that they had significant communication problems. They thought it would be much easier, but it wasn't. Moreover, they have 3 Danes in their team. Danish and English are in the same language group, and as you can see, almost all Scandinavian countries speak excellent English. Look at how Kerrigan, Cadian, Snappy and Dupree speak. Dupree could almost rap in English. So I'm more than confident that the language issues in Vitality were only with the French players, and it still took them a lot of time to finally perform well. In the new Navi, we only have Alexi B and JL to some extent who are fluent in English. The rest needs to significantly improve, especially Bit. Just a year or two ago, he could only compete with Electronic in terms of who gives worse interviews in English.
Will you help Bit with some issues with the language?
Only God can help you.
And if Vitality, having 3 players with excellent English, had such significant communication problems, imagine what could potentially happen with Navi. I'm sure the TeamSpeak in their early matches will be a complete nightmare. Transitioning to an international approach opens up huge possibilities. You can pick up almost any top player you want. Want Nico? No problem. Raps? No problem. But if we look beyond the potential and focus on the here and now, it's a significant risk. And considering how Navi loves making changes after 6 months if they don't win trophies, how long will this new lineup last? Well, it's an open question. Also, let's not forget that besides the game, there's real life. The players need to communicate outside the server, find common interests, be friends, create chemistry. Can they do that without their native language? We'll see. The second huge problem is JL and Ime's lack of Tier 1 experience. As I mentioned in the video with the official announcement of the new Navi roster, this pair has very little experience on the Tier 1 scene. JL only started playing with the teams in the top 20 of HLTV this year, and Ime did the same last year. Together they have played only 66 maps against the top 20. NPL has played roughly the same number and he's only 17 years old, while the new Navi players are 20 23. Typically, at this age, players reach their career peaks. After 25, there's usually decline. Understandably, CS is a relatively young discipline, and we don't have much statistics in this regard. But I remember there was a study conducted on Reddit and HLTV, and it showed that after 25 years old, players start declining. There are only a few exceptions like Forest, Rain, and a couple of others. So here we have two important players in the lineup almost without tier 1 experience, and they are no longer the young talents with a couple of years to spare, you might say. But Electronic didn't have much experience when he joined Navi. Perfecto had little experience, and what about Boomich? Sure, I agree they were not that experienced, but Navi replaced players one at a time, not three at once. They had a system and the new player just had to fit in. Here they're essentially starting from scratch with inexperienced JL and Ime. Plus, Electronic was 18 when he joined Navi, Perfecto was 20 and Boomich was also 20. By that time they had almost similar or even more experience than JL and Ime. Perhaps when Blade was considering new players, he was impressed by how intelligently and skillfully these two players performed, and he just wanted to give them a chance, believing that they could conquer the tier 1 scene. That's entirely possible, but unfortunately CS doesn't have many examples like that. The only one that comes to mind is Hunter. He appeared seemingly out of nowhere and started dominating, but he's more of an exception than a rule. Other examples I found either declined like Sanpayas or went through hardships before reaching the tier 1 scene, like Nerds. He made it to the tier 1 scene at the age of 23, but he had already made a name for himself in his entire 22nd year, playing for Endpoint. Many clubs pursued him and he didn't disappoint. In the end, only time will tell whether Ime or JL will become the new Hunters or remain players from a single major. We'll see. The third problem is Alexi B. On one hand, he has some positive sides, but we will discuss that later. Let's first talk about the problems. Alexi B is an experienced captain who has consistently been in the top 30 of HLTV rankings for the past few years. He climbed up from the 200s with ENS, joined OG when the roster was built from scratch, held G2 afloat, and played for NIP. He has long proven that he's a capable captain with his own style. However, there's one serious concern: he didn't win anything. With ENS, they were performing exceptionally well, consistently reaching the playoffs but failing to win any trophies. The same happened with OG, G2 and NIP, no trophies. And it's not like he had weak teams. G2 had all the potential to become the new flagship of the pro scene, but lost to FaZe in a super close Katowice final, and they never reached such heights again. Additionally, it seems like Alexi has issues with performing in crucial matches. Remember how they won only one round against Furia on Ancient as G2 got eliminated from the major? The same thing happened at the last major in Paris. They were leading 14-3 and then only won one round in attack against Apex. It's like Alexi B, with all his colossal experience, gets lost in key moments and cannot lead the team effectively. This leads to another downside. From what I've seen over the years, he may be a good captain, but as a leader he still has to work and improve. He was removed from ENS even though everything was going well for the team due to factors unrelated to the game. Alu was not the captain but was the leader, and he completely overshadowed Alexi. In G2 he clashed with Nico, and I have no idea why he was kicked from NIP. It definitely wasn't due to his in-game performance. In almost every team he has been removed as if it was due to his personal qualities. Again, we don't know what goes on within the team and can only judge from the outside, but based on interviews with his former teammates, it seems that few perceive him as a true leader, a strong personality who leads the team. Most people acknowledge his strategic thinking and structure, but they don't compare him to Kerrigan or Cadian. Alexi B seems to be not the pack leader, and how quickly will Simple overshadow him if they don't start winning? I think you probably know the answer to that question better than I do. And the fourth problem is Simple. That's how the third problem transitions into the fourth problem. How can Alexi B, who is not a particularly strong leader, manage Simple? Yes, if everything works and the team wins, there will be no issues. But you understand that it's almost unrealistic, considering that Navi is changing 3 players at once and transitioning to English. I guess that 98% of the tournaments they will take part in will turn into dust, and that's normal and expected. I personally will be very surprised if Navi starts winning immediately, considering how Vitality, Heroic ENS, FaZe, G2 and all other teams are strong right now, and they haven't even changed their rosters except for Vitality. I can't even imagine how the new Navi can win against them without any synergy. So initially we'll have to probably accept defeats, except that Navi won't make it to the playoffs and win tournaments. How will this affect Simple? Will he be able to keep himself together? And the main concern here is that Sasha hasn't been showing his level for quite some time. Having a well-practiced, experienced lineup with NPL being the only one underperforming, he managed to put up some of the worst stats in his career. Right now, it's not the same Simple who could single-handedly defeat the best teams in the world. Look at his stats from a year ago when Navi wasn't winning, but Simple still had 1.30, 1.40 ratings, which he earned himself and deserved the top spot. Now a 1.20 is considered good for him. He doesn't even make it into the top 3 in ratings for this year. It's a true disappointment for him. Right now, Navi needs that very Simple who can lead the team on his own. But will this Simple return in the new season? I think even the most dedicated fans don't have much faith in that outcome. But the important thing is that he believes in himself. The fifth problem is Bit. The fact that Bit is not good at English is only half the problem. What's more important is that he has been underperforming in terms of firepower this year. At IEM Rio, he didn't even end up with a positive rating for the entire tournament. It's widely recognized that Bit is showing the worst CS of his career, and now he has to communicate in English as well. Also, do you remember how Bit used to clutch in crucial moments? Even Simple mentioned it in interviews. Bit has lost his confidence, which has affected the communication, and this leads to other problems. Now, imagine that on top of this lack of confidence, he also has to communicate in English and deal with a new inexperienced lineup, complete restructuring, and personal expectations. He used to effortlessly demolish everyone, and now things aren't working out. I believe that this overall transition will be the most challenging for Bit out of all the players. If the team doesn't perform well, there's a high chance that he will struggle even more. Yes, they will probably return some of his previous roles, but will he be able to put up the same numbers as before? Who knows? And the sixth problem is CS2. Yes, we still don't know when the new game will be released, but it's obvious that it will happen with the current Navi lineup. Well, unless they completely collapse and start reshuffling again in a couple of months. Anyways, most likely Navi will enter the new CS with this lineup. And as we've seen from the transition from 1.6 to Source to Global Offensive, the veterans who are accustomed to certain mechanics and have been playing by them for years suffer the most. On the other hand, it opens doors for young enthusiasts. Now, Navi is not the youngest team. AlexiB is 26, Simple is 25, JL and Ime are 23. The only one who is still a young talent is Bit, but even by CS standards, he is more of an established player. Will these players have more motivation and time than the young talents like those in Mouse, for example? How will the transition to the new game affect Simple? Will AlexiB be able to adapt and start learning all the new grenades from scratch? And most importantly, Blade. Sure thing, he's a brilliant mind in the pro scene, but many analysts say that he has outdated views on the game. Like he sticks to tactics from 2015. Yes, he modernizes them, but fundamentally doesn't change them. Again, these are not my words, but the opinions of analysts. Overall, it feels like there's more belief in young lineups like Mouse or Heroic, for example. But in any case, CS2 will significantly change the pro scene, and it will depend on the teams themselves whether they can stay afloat or have to yield to the young enthusiasts. Now, let's run through some last few negative points. For example, the departure of Electronic and Perfecto. Navi nurtured these players for years, and they are true monsters of the Tier 1 scene. Perfecto has been flourishing lately, and Electronic has the incredible potential to become the best captain in the pro scene. And these actually are not my words, but Blade's. Moreover, according to rumors, the players left voluntarily, which is also a huge blow to the reputation of the entire organization. Navi has a knack for losing their main assets, Monesi, Boomich, and now Perfecto and Electronic. Wouldn't it be fun to watch how these four came together in one team someday and crushed Navi in the final of a major? Another problem is the Navi fans. Let's be honest, our community is not the friendliest, and you can imagine the pressure the new lineup is under. They're already experiencing immense stress, having to build an entirely new team from scratch in a new language under a new captain, and now they have to deal with the pressure from the community. If Navi starts losing, and they will, people will bombard them with criticism, fair or unfair. Guardian received tons of hate. SDY became the face of all Navi's failures to some extent. And also NPL was heavily heavily criticized. Yes, someone like SDY could withstand it and move on to play in the major, but someone like Guardian lost confidence and disappeared from the pro scene. Can the newcomers withstand all this hate and not get lost? Something to think about. When we put all of this together, we have a range of problems that Navi will have to overcome one way or another. Some factors will fade away, like Bit if he suddenly remembers how he was dismantling opponents a year ago, but some problems can be truly dangerous and destructive. What if after the major everyone figures out how to counter Ime or JL? Back then they were unknown rookies. People didn't really prepare for them and their individual play wasn't analyzed, but now they are Navi players and every aspect of their positions, peaks and setups will be scrutinized. That's the difference in the tier 1 scene. Preparations for opponents. How will they handle this new reality? To sum things up, there are many questions, and we will only get the answers in the new season. Luckily, it starts really soon. Don't forget to write your opinion in the comments regarding all the negative points we just discussed. Maybe I missed something or exaggerated certain points. Once again, this is an experimental video, and I need your feedback. And now, let's talk about the positivities of the new Navi lineup. The first good thing is Alexi B. Firstly, Navi will finally have a full-fledged captain, experienced and with a wide variety of tactics and ideas. In theory, Navi hasn't had someone like this since Zeus. Although the balance with Boomich was ideal in terms of experience, Alexi B definitely surpasses him. As for Electronic, I won't say much. We've already discussed Alexi B's problems as a captain, but one thing is clear. With him, Navi may not win anything, but there's also a very small chance that they will completely collapse. He capped all of his previous teams in the top, maybe not shining brightly himself, but certainly not leading them to the bottom. People always talked about his teams as title contenders, and most importantly, he knows how to work with both stars and tier 2 players. Under his leadership, Mantu and Hetrick blossomed. Flames became a true star, and he also brought out the potential in Monacy. Indeed, Huxi multiplied it, but Alexi laid the foundation for the transition to the tier 1 level. And all these players are in demand now, so in theory he's the perfect captain for Ime and JL to make their transition as smooth and effective as possible. Plus, in interviews, his former teammates have spoken highly of Alexi's individual work. He sits down with the players, analyzes their positions, discusses tactics and all that. This approach should work wonders with newcomers. And let's not forget about his love for structure. Nico mentions in an interview that Alexi is all about the micromanagement, who does what, who should look where, and all of that in certain situations. And perhaps precisely because of that he didn't fit in with G2. Whether it's Hunter, Nico or Monacy, they're all very free players who need space on the map, and Alexi didn't give them that. Sounds familiar. Resembles of Blade. Very much. They both have these papers with roles and tactics, and if someone does something wrong, the whole team suffers. Both the captain and the coach have very similar ideas and principles. If they find a common ground, they can amplify the power of structure. Navi doesn't need as much freedom as G2, it's a completely different set of players. There's only Simple, who is like a force of nature on the map. He peeks when he wants, aggressively goes for solo plays and all that. Blade never prohibited him from doing so, and Alexi B won't either. So in theory it could work incredibly well, but on one condition: everyone else play their roles perfectly and understand what is expected from them on the map. Moreover, Alexi has good statistics among other captains. 0.94 rating with over 23 years old is on par with Apex, almost as good as Snappy, better than Kerrigan, Dexter and even Nefani. In terms of aim, Alexi is above average for captains. And considering the strong fraggers Navi acquired, his 10-15 frags per map could be more than enough for victory. Second good point: roles, structure and statistics. I won't lie, I took this from HLTV. They published a huge article about why the new Navi roster is almost perfect in terms of roles, with everyone in their rightful positions. Let's go through the article and understand why. First, let's look at the statistics. Ime is a breakout player of the major and one of the best fraggers of the year. Just remember that he was battling Zaivu for the major MVP until the very end. A 1.35 rating is insane. It's one of the strongest performances in the history of majors. For example, only Shiro achieved such numbers in Rio, and no one came close in Antwerp, while in Stockholm, Simple showcased one of the best performances in the game's history with a 1.47 rating, followed by Nico with 1.36, just a little bit higher than Ime, and Nico himself said that it was the best form of his career. Overall, Ime had an outstanding major, but if we look at other tournaments, the numbers are impressive as well. He had 1.38 at RMR events, great statistics in Dallas, and many tier 2 tournaments where his team often didn't make it to the playoffs. So Ime is currently in the best form of his career, and if he continues to deliver such numbers, he could easily make it into the top 10 or even top 5 of HLTV's end of the year rankings. As for JL, he also has excellent statistics. Yes, not as impressive as Ime, but his role is different. He achieved these numbers on the tier 2 scene, but as a lurker, as an anchor of B and A. It's extremely challenging to have outstanding statistics in roles that are not as action-oriented, unless you're a prodigy like Robs. However, JL performed well even against tier 1 teams with a 1.63 rating against Mouse, 1.25 against Liquid, and 1.54 against OG. He has a chance to become a new dream anchor similar to Perfecto. Plus, he speaks Russian and he's a very open, fun, and media-friendly player. He has everything it takes to become a beloved figure for the CS community and the team. JL also is quite versatile, as seen in his previous teams. He had to play both aggressive roles and passive roles. When he was given more freedom in Apex, he truly blossomed. They started winning and collecting trophies on the tier 2 scene, so with the right utilization, JL can have a significant impact on his new team. I believe they initially picked him up to replace NPL. If the previous 4 had stayed together, JL would have been a perfect fit. However, Electronic and Perfecto decided to leave, forcing a complete roster rebuild and a switch to English. We've already discussed Alexi B and his statistics, which are in good order compared to other captains. Now let's talk about roles. HLTV even provided a table showing the roles played by players in their previous teams on the attack. We can see that the conflicts are minimal. JL as a lurker, stepping in for Perfecto. Beat can play previous roles or the ones he played back in 2021 when Navi introduced him initially. Now Navi will have a full-fledged regular captain in Alexi, who has always focused on throwing flashbangs, leading the team and setting up strategies, unlike Electronic, who aggressively plays, breaks opponents, gets kills and tries to lead the team in the meantime. Ime will take many of Electronic's previous roles, not as a captain but as a star player. In theory, Navi will return to a more familiar attacking model where everyone is in their proper place and Beat can feel like he did under Boomich. Plus, both newcomers are very aggressive players, which can work in Alexi's favor. He will have more space and can utilize it effectively. Again, this is all in theory and we'll see how it plays out in reality. Now let's talk about defense. Here everything's in order too, except for a few maps. For example, on Nuke almost all the Navi newcomers played on ramp as Bit, but these are just rare cases. Additionally, over the past 2 years, Alexi has changed 3 teams and played different roles everywhere, so he's used to adapting. But the other players have a little overlap. The decision now lies with Blade, whether he will continue turning Bit into the anchor of his dreams or assign him slightly different roles as in 2021, and have JL take on the anchor role. Overall, we see minimal conflicts in roles. Everyone mostly plays in their comfortable positions, and if needed they can always change, shuffle around and disrupt their opponents. So on paper, Navi's roster becomes more flexible than before, as noted by not only HLTV but also many analysts. The article also mentions that the new Navi lineup has an ideal balance of aggression and trades. For example, Alexi B is always ready to be the first to go out and die to get some information, so that Simple or Ime can come in and eliminate the rest, and the graphs show that this approach works. Similarly, Bit is quite passive compared to other CS players in his new roles, while Ime is super aggressive. This creates the necessary balance in defense between space and safe play. If Bit or JL can perform their roles well depending on Blade's choice, they can easily become the next Robs or Spinks. They are currently being referred to as kings of passive lurking. And all of this balances out with the highly aggressive moves from Ime and Simple. Finally, the last graph compares the statistics of Electronic and Ime in 2023. In all aspects, Electronics falls short. In theory, Navi star players should see an increase in firepower, while Alexei's statistics are not as good as Electronics when it comes to star players who dedicate the game. Navi can improve in this aspect, considering that Ime will distribute kills as he did at the Major, or maybe even better. The key is for them to establish a partnership like Electronic plus Simple, and then they can make a lot of noise. The conclusion drawn by HLTV is that this is the best Navi lineup among all the possible options available on the market. Yes, hypothetically, Nico in combination with Robs would be an ideal mix of aggression and passivity. Having the two best players in the world in their positions would be great, but I don't think their respective teams would let them go. Among the options available, Ime and JL are the best. For example, Boros or Flames in combination with Rainwaker looks slightly less promising. Again, this is the opinion of the analysts and different statistics. In reality, things can always turn out differently. Despite all the hate from the community regarding the new lineup, Blade has truly put a lot of effort in selecting players, considering both roles and balance within the game. Now, the main thing is for all it to work. And the third advantage is that this roster is international. Surely this is an obvious advantage and cannot be overlooked. Navi has transitioned to English for the first time in their history, which no one expected, even Simple mentioned it in an interview. This brings about many challenges, but also many benefits. The main advantage is that Navi is no longer limited to Russian-speaking players. If they are not satisfied with Alexei B, they can go and pick almost any other captain on the market. The same goes for any other, for example Bit. If Bit doesn't perform well in the new lineup, they can always reinforce the team with another anchor. And if JL falls short, there are many players in the pro scene who can not only replace but actually strengthen the roster. After Bumich's departure, it seemed like Navi was just trying to patch up the holes. They brought in SDY because there were no other options. They brought in NPL for future prospects, but now they can actually reinforce the team. And it can be done selectively, just like Vitality did. They were already in a good position, but then a free agent like Flames with immense potential became available, and Navi can follow a similar path at any moment. Plus, they are now focused on the English-speaking audience, which opens up a new market with new sponsors and larger contracts. Yes, Navi already had a large fan base from Europe and America, but now it can become even bigger. In the longer run, this can bring in more money and therefore more opportunities for the roster. Ultimately, this could work in Navi's favor. And the good point number 4 is CS2. Sure thing, it has its downsides, but there are also benefits from the release of the new game, and the main one is time. It's no secret that almost all teams leave from one major to another, making roster changes for the majors or not making them at all. The next major will happen only in the spring of 2024 due to the release of CS2, which means that the new Navi lineup has plenty of time to synergize, and if things doesn't work out, there is even time to rebuild the roster. Without CS2, such an opportunity wouldn't exist. Another advantage of this additional time I observed from Jaime. In his video evaluating the off-season transfers, he said that everyone is used to Navi's style. They play slowly, based on information and sounds, and now they have the opportunity to completely change all the tactics, practice vertigo, change their style, and much more. With the advent of CS2, the pro scene will be rebooted anyways, and there is a chance to jump on that train right from the start and shape their new era. Who knows, G2, FaZe, Heroic, Cloud9 and Vitality may not be able to showcase the same CS in the new game, but Navi can. Only time will tell. Additionally, due to the release of CS2, almost all teams have made roster shuffles, even where they didn't seem necessary. This puts everyone on a similar level. Everyone needs to adapt to the new lineups, integrate new players and face difficulties. In this regard, Navi made reshuffles in the best moment possible. The fifth advantage is stepping out of the comfort zone. I agree, it may seem like a good point for the sake of a good point, but any professional will tell you otherwise. It's no wonder that many football players move to other teams for a new challenge, and the same thing can happen with Simple. Many have noticed that his motivation has declined, he has been performing worse, spending less time on CS and getting more distracted by cars and other factors. Now, Navi's roster has been completely rebooted, it's essentially a new team, and for Simple it's an excellent challenge and a reason to regain his previous motivation. He has long talked about his desire desired to play in an international lineup, and now he has been given the opportunity. Add to that the release of the new game, two factors that should ignite a spark in Simple, and this way we have a reason to believe that he will once again single-handedly carry the entire team, especially if they struggle to win. Navi's results are directly dependent on Simple's level of performance. If he shines, the team is on top, but if not, problems arise. This is precisely the moment that can take Simple out of his comfort zone, and he didn't even have to switch to another team. The new team came to him. The main thing now is just to find common ground with Alexi B. So the analysts divide it into two camps. Some say that they will perform the best captain-sniper duo possible, while others are skeptical and believe that Simple's authority will overshadow Alexi B, and the Finnish player will have to look for a new team once again. If we look at Alexi B's history, he seems to be just unlucky. In ENS, everything was great, but they had to part ways due to issues surrounding a girlfriend. Some of them slept with each other and the team fell apart. In OG, they were unlucky with the pandemic. They just formed a new lineup with players from different countries and boom, the pandemic struck, preventing them from working together and establishing team play. And despite that, Alexi managed to keep the team in the world's top 20. They even reached top 5 once. This logically earned him an invitation to G2, but as you know, Nico has his struggles with captains. And you know, other free will players who don't like to play under strict structure. So eventually it was the third failure in a row. Next, NIP, something I can't quite understand. They formed an international roster, brought in Alexi B, he assembled the team, and they went 3-0 in the major, missing just one round to make it to the playoffs, and boom, another change. The fourth failure in a row. And now Alexi has everything he needs. A superstar player like Simple, an incredibly clear structure from Blade, the perfect role distribution in the team, with some of the best players this year in each position. And he's got time. Most likely, Navi's management understands that such a transition doesn't happen quickly. The team needs at least half a year to start working in English, get in sync, and start winning. And we have around 8 months until the major. That's about how long he lasted in G2 and NIP. If everything goes well, Simple doesn't rage or rage, Beat doesn't struggle, and JL and Ime performed like they did at the major, then Navi has everything they need to start building their era in CS2. In my opinion, the good points and the bad points are distributed equally, with the understanding that sometimes I combined multiple advantages and disadvantages in one point. In theory, Navi could either start kicking everyone's butts or fade away in a few months. Personally, I have more doubts than belief in this lineup. I feel like Ime and JL won't perform at the same level on the tier 1 scene. I think Beat will completely close himself off and won't feel comfortable. I also think that Simple might overshadow Alexi, just relaunching the G2 scenario for him. But on the other hand, I understand that Navi didn't have other options. Perfecto and Electronic left on their own, and Blade probably chose the best available. Now they need to turn all this potential into a well-oiled machine, and if everything goes well and clicks and works, it will be really intense. The structure of Blade and Alexi B could turn the pro scene upside down. We can only observe and see how it unfolds. I am excited that a new season is starting, and we have so many new things ahead, with CS2 on the horizon. So get ready for even more content. As always, share your opinions in the comments, whether you agree with me or not, if I missed anything or if I said something unnecessary or wrong. I'm looking forward to all your comments and the feedback you guys can give me. And you guys can vote with likes to this video and following my channel if you want more videos like this, with my homemade analysis. Anyways, I'm not saying goodbye for a long time. See you soon.